To the other very important story that we're tracking on Mirror now. The doctors, we understand, at West Bengal have called off their strike about half an hour ago, but not before it turned into a national movement for the medical fraternity and a political potboiler about the West Bengal Chief Minister's handling of the issue. Now, for those of you who don't know how and where this started, here's what happened. 7 days ago, a 75-year-old patient called Mohammed Saeed passed away at the NRS Medical College in Kolkata. Now, his family claimed he died because of negligent treatment, and they attacked the doctors on duty so badly that one resident, Dr. Paribaha Mukherjee, was so grievously injured that he went into a coma because his skull was fractured. The junior doctors at the hospital then went on an indefinite strike, demanding security when they do their jobs, quite rightly so. In the 2 days that followed, the strike snowballed to all 13 medical college hospitals and 6 district hospitals in the state of Bengal. The Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, visited one hospital in Kolkata and she threatened the doctors to join work before 2 p.m. that day or find themselves facing strong action. She even threatened to throw them out of their hostels, and she made things completely worse by calling the striking doctors outsiders who don't speak Bengali. She called the strike a conspiracy between the BJP and the CPM. Mamata Banerjee's ultimatum made things a lot worse. About 550 doctors resigned from their jobs across the state in protest. The Joint Forum for Junior Doctors issued a 6-point charter demanding that Mamata Banerjee come to NRS, meet the striking doctors and meet Dr. Paribaha, the intern who was attacked, who was still in the ICU from partial loss of memory and a threat to his eyesight. They rejected the CM's offer of a closed-door meeting and demanded that the media be allowed to stream the meeting live. By Friday last week, the strike spread across the country. Doctors shut down their OPDs and clinics in support of the movement, and they wore black shirts and bands and bandages across their heads in solidarity to the doctor who was attacked. Now, we must remember here and take a step back to remember that the NRS attack was not the first attack on doctors in our country. In fact, in 2017, a report by the Indian Medical Association found that 75% of Indian doctors have faced some sort of violence in the workplace or the other. 49% of these incidents were reported inside ICUs, and in nearly 70%, the violence was committed by patients and their families. Over a year ago, Maharashtra's doctors went on a strike for a very similar brutal attack that took place near Mumbai. And in 2015, representatives of the medical fraternity met with a committee formed by the central government to find a way to keep doctors safe when they work. They demanded a central legislation or a law that provides protection to all doctors across the country in hospitals when they're working, and punishment for those who attack doctors in hospitals. That legislation was never moved. The law was never brought in from 2015 till today. The striking doctors across the country have now revived that demand. And today, the representatives of the medical colleges held a meeting with Mamata Banerjee at her office, and the strike was called off. And there have been accusations through the last 7 days of the BJP getting involved because they want to destabilize the West Bengal government, or Mamata Banerjee's absolute horrible, completely terrible handling of this entire issue. And also a religious angle was brought in from the attacker to the attacked. But those will keep going on. This should actually make us ask much harder questions. Why is it that our doctors need to risk their lives when they're doing their jobs? Would you and I risk our lives when doing our jobs? Why is it that some people are asking, should doctors be allowed to go on strike? What we should be asking is, why do they have to go on strike to get attention for such a basic problem? Is the problem really the poor doctor-patient ratio in India? Do you know that we have one doctor for every 11,082 patients in India, where the global WHO subscription on that should be 1 to 1,000, we're 1 to 11,000. We spend only 1% of our GDP on health when the international average is 6%. Do you know Sri Lanka spends 4 times as much as we do? The truth is, health doesn't get attention that it deserves in government. Healthcare is not sexy, so nobody thinks about it. Nobody thinks about it until things go horribly, horribly wrong. And in this case, things went horribly, horribly wrong. We need to now force our governments, and I'm using the word force, to look at healthcare with the importance it deserves. to look at healthcare at the primary healthcare centers, at the secondary healthcare centers, and of course at the hospitals. The irony of our country right now is that because we don't have enough medical seats, young people are committing suicide because they're not getting seats to become doctors. We have young people who want to become doctors, but we don't have enough colleges. And as a result, we don't have enough doctors. It is a problem the government needs to solve by looking at the very source, healthcare spending. On the show with me today, Dr. Rajan Sharma, National President-elect of the IMA, Vivek Reddy for the BJP. Garga Chatterjee is a political analyst who speaks for the TMC this evening. Dr. Sanjay Nagral is a surgeon and the chairperson for the Forum of Medical Ethics. And Kingshuk Nag is a senior journalist. I welcome all of you to this conversation. Thank you for giving us your time. Dr. Nagral, good evening. I will start with you. The strike has been called off. And every time there is a strike like this, as journalists, we find ourselves talking to patients outside hospitals who are bearing the brunt, the worst of it. But the truth is that in India, we don't spend enough money or enough attention on healthcare, do we?
Yeah, we don't. And, you know, the issue really is, so first of all, just to put things in perspective, as you said rightly, that this is not the first time there has been violence against doctors. Something peculiar about this incident, which perhaps you all again pointed out, the reaction of the state.
Yes.
But this is also a global problem. Violence against doctors is a global problem. Perhaps in India, what we need to look at is this a sign of a crumbling public healthcare infrastructure? Is this a sign of increasing mistrust from patients? And possibly, one is beginning to also think that is maybe also a sign of the fact that the average citizen now is not willing to, in a sense, take things lying down, because there are visible signs when they go into hospitals: overcrowding, understaffing, equipment not working. So whilst one does not and cannot justify violence, but it's beginning to be obvious to people that there are these huge fault lines that they see. And if you see the typical setting, Faye, in which these incidents took place, is usually somebody who's very sick, who's brought in by family members. And one reason why family members come in to hospitals in India is because, you know, they need to push the stretchers, they need to actually carry people. So it's not as if they're purposely coming in. And there is a death, which may be inevitable. But very often they see that the casualty or the emergency is about full of people, and therefore inevitably somebody is pushed to the corner. And once the death takes place, sometimes the way the news is broken to the family is also important.
The lack of bedside manner.
That doesn't happen. And so this is a cocktail, and this is we are seeing time and again.
So I also want to ask you about this. Now there have been other cases. Just recently, one resident doctor committed suicide because he wasn't given leave. In Mumbai, a intern resident committed suicide because she was bullied and she was overworked. There's enough has been said, including at KEM and our Sion Hospital, about how rough the schedule is for interns and residents, to a point where there isn't enough of their attention to be given to all patients. And these problems will then become an eventuality.
It is. And, you know, I wrote something on this saying that is the way we train our resident doctors is almost as if the junior-most person takes the entire brunt of work. It's a very top-down system. We almost converted the training system of doctors into some kind of, sleepless time where they will not have food, not have a proper bath, almost like it's a rite of passage of training a doctor. And that also, therefore, leads to a junior doctor who is overworked, who is under extreme stress, and also the top-down medical establishment in the hospital itself. It's putting all the burden on the junior doctor. So from both sides, the patient who is under stress and that junior doctor who is the visible symbol of the medical establishment for those relatives, both are under extreme stress.
Right. I just want to bring in the rest of the panel as well. Dr. Rajan Sharma is with us, the National President-elect of the IMA. Dr. Sharma, we understand that the junior doctors in Bengal have called off their strike. Has the IMA also called off their strike this evening?
Yes. Today in a statement, the Union Health Minister has accepted our demand again to call off to make the necessary central bill at the earliest. And also the issue in West Bengal has been addressed too. So there is no reason to continue on the withdrawal of non-essential services. I will not call it a strike because we were doing emergency duties and we were taking care of emergency cases. So yes, we take back our call of partial withdrawal of essential services. We start working normally from tomorrow onwards.
Dr. Sharma, could you tell us, when you say that the government has agreed to your demands from the IMA, what were those demands to begin with?
See, we had this Damage to Clinical Establishments Act passed in 19 states due to our efforts at the local state IMA levels. But what we saw and practically happened was the same provisions were not in the CRPC and IPC. So that led to non-implementation of Act at the Thana level, where our issues of specific bylaws were not addressed to which the union government has agreed. And we are hopeful that in a short time it will be done with.
Okay, I just want to bring in the rest of the panelists as well.
Law alone.
Yes.
But
Dr. Sharma, from what I understand, in 2015, you had submitted, the IMA at least had submitted a report to the Government of India asking for punishment for anyone who attacked, or penalties for anyone who attacked a doctor, and enough protection and security for all hospitals. Was that implemented?
Healthcare personnel.
Yes.
No, it was agreed upon by the Interministerial Committee, but was never implemented. So, in the current government, when we were starting to pursue, suddenly the West Bengal crisis came as a flashpoint. And the simmering discontent became a public anger in our community that doctors need to be safe. And they need a fear-free environment to work and to perform their duties as per our conscience and as per our knowledge. This was not happening.
Yes.
There were cases of verbal and physical assault all over the country, and which was somewhere down the line affecting our healthcare system. And only laws. There are many other issues.
Mr. Sharma, would it be fair for me to say that if the central government had actually brought in this law in 2015 as recommended by the IMA, that the attack in Bengal and several of the others would not have happened?
No, ma'am. I still feel, as a nation, as one voice, all the political parties, all the pillars of democracy, the media, and the society leaders need to give a clarion call, unitedly in one voice, that doctors are not to be subjected to violence, and we have to protect our healthcare personnel for them to deliver the healthcare who are delivering already in a very compromised way because of the huge workload and the population explosion. We need heavy investment or heavy increase in the GDP to improve our healthcare facilities.
All right, I also want to bring in the other guests. We have Mr. Chatterjee right now joining us out of Kolkata. Mr. Chatterjee, would you agree that the West Bengal government's treatment of this entire problem was abysmal and has actually caused the whole thing to steamroll out of control?
If you consider the West Bengal government that by day one had arrested 5 people and put them under non-bailable charges. They are in police with the police now and have been with the police for the last 1 week. The security has been beefed up, okay, and repeated assurances have been given. And at the same time, I'm glad that this impasse is over, though I am extremely sad that in the process there are people in West Bengal there have been lots of people who have lost their lives. BJP has unnecessarily politicized it, communalized it. It's a very unfortunate side of it. But when you talk about abysmal, we have to have a benchmark. What is this benchmark of being abysmal? It is the fact. Is it the is
May I tell
the
you what
fact
my
that
benchmark is?
Narendra Modi in 2009 arrested 150 doctors? I'll tell you. If Narendra Modi in 2009 arresting 150 doctors, is that the benchmark of abysmal? Is the present Union Minister Anant Hegde beating up doctors? Is that abysmal? And I hope this new law,
May I give you
does
my
Anant Hegde fall
definition of
within the
abysmal?
ambit of that law? I would like to know.
Yes, okay. Thank you for answering my question with a question.
Please go ahead.
Here's my definition of abysmal. Mamata Banerjee visiting SSKM hospital in Kolkata, where she basically said that if they don't fall in line to provide service to patients, strong action will be taken against them. They will be removed from their hostels. They are outsiders. The government will not support these outsiders in any way. I condemn the doctors that have gone on strike. The policemen die in line of duty. Police don't go on strike. This is a conspiracy of the BJP at the CPM. I consider that response abysmal, Mr. Chatterjee.
That is only part of the story. Yes, it is true that she was verbally abused and heckled by a certain section of outsider doctors when she visited SSKM. It is on record. And that is why the domicile B method of entry to West Bengal's medical colleges has been closed now. She has declared it. And let me correct you on the earlier issue when you talked about
Mr. Chatterjee, forgive me for interrupting you. What is this domicile B entry into medical colleges that has been closed by the government? Explain that to us, please.
Domicile B means it was a method by which students from outside would be getting in through the West Bengal state quota by forging documents. This had been going on for a few years, and this has now been closed. When she had visited SSKM, she was abused in Hindi, and these things happened. This is not normal. Also, if I may correct you, the people who committed suicide, you mentioned, they committed suicide due to NEET. These are Tamil girls, Anita, Revati, all of these girls. And West Bengal government with Tamil Nadu stands against NEET that has completely destroyed the basic societally representative character of doctors who are being produced in our medical colleges.
One second, Mr. Chatterjee, when you say that the people who protested were speaking Hindi, it sounds to me like Mamata Banerjee is allowing her paranoid politics to get in the way of her job of running the state. Now, are you telling me there is not a single domiciled doctor from Bengal who went up in protest over the last 7 days? Because I'll open up my phone lines right now and invite the doctors to call. Anyone speaking Bengali who protested against the Chief Minister, because I have a strong feeling that you're grossly misled in this particular matter. Mr. Chatterjee, go ahead.
No, that is not true. Of course, there were huge scores and hundreds of Bengali doctors who had protested, and also non-Bengali doctors. There is no Bengali, non-Bengali issue here. But there were outsiders who abused the Chief Minister.
What are outsiders? Tell me what. One second. This is not okay. Mr. Chatterjee, what is an outsider? Describe an outsider to me.
An outsider who is somebody who abuses the Chief Minister in Hindi and hence does not know the ethos of the land of Bengal.
Now, one second. Mr. Chatterjee, I understand the last time I checked, this is one country. And as per our fundamental rights, according to the Constitution of India, as citizens of India, we are allowed to live and work anywhere within the borders of this country. Now, please tell me what you mean by an outsider. Are you saying that people who speak Hindi are not welcome in the state of Bengal? Because I will point out to you people who speak Bengali who are warmly welcomed across the country.
Well, I do not, first of all, Bengalis, especially Hindu Bengalis, are hardly welcome in Bengaluru, where they are.
Please, Mr. Chatterjee. No. Mr. Chatterjee, you are stepping on the wrong toes. I grew up in Bengaluru, and I have plenty of friends who are Bengali-speaking Bengalis who live there very, very happily. Please do not attempt to divide this country based on your cheap politics, because you don't know how to run your state. Do not accuse the city of Bangalore of being unwelcoming.
Again,
that is not okay.
Let me finish my point. It is not the city of Bangalore. I have good friends in Bangalore, Kannadigas, who are proud Kannadigas and are welcoming of Bengalis. I am talking about a particular BJP MLC who did this slum clearing of Bengalis in Bengaluru. Again in Assam, 28 lakh Hindu Bengalis have been put out of
Mr.
NRC.
Chatterjee, are you looking, are you appealing for a separate country in Bengal? Do you want to be part of this country? Or are you looking for secession here? Are you looking for a separate country? Is that what the TMC's politics is about now? Because I don't understand how we got from doctors to arguing that Bengalis are not welcome in the city of Bangalore. What are you trying to divide? Can we just make this clear? What do you want to divide? The state, the country, south, north, east, west? What is your politics today?
If you were to simply quote me and not paraphrase according to your imagination, then
my imagination, I promise you, I have a very poor imagination. I have no imagination whatsoever. But it sounds to me like you're attempting to divide people based on language. But I will give you evidence of Bengalis being welcome all across the country. Now, you please tell me why Indians are not welcome in parts of Bengal. Why are Hindi-speaking people not welcome in Bengal? Please tell me. Why are Hindi-speaking people not welcome in Bengal? And what does that have to do with the fact that doctors got beaten up in hospitals?
So if you allow this time to at least 60 seconds uninterrupted, let me finish.
Go.
Percentage of Hindi speakers in Bengal have only increased over the last 7 decades. That's hardly a sign of being unwelcome. Okay. It's a sign of super welcoming. Okay. While Bengali percentage has gone down in Bihar and Jharkhand, I do not know what that is a sign of. Having said that, I must say, in West Bengal, a chief minister gets abused in Hindi by a person who is from not the state. Can you imagine if a person from Bengal was abusing Yogi Adityanath or Nitish Kumar or one of these BJP
in Bengali, none of them would understand what he said.
What would happen to that person? The person.
Are they abusing in Bengali or are they abusing in Hindi?
And that's part of the problem, right? Their mother tongue, and that's part of the problem. We are not obligated to understand some other language other than our mother tongue.
Mr. Chatterjee, your argument, and that's your 60 seconds up, your argument is very, very poor to say the least. Your point is that someone abused the Chief Minister, Ms. Banerjee, in Hindi in her state, and she took offense. If she took offense, she should file a complaint with the police that reports to her.
Not in the state. When she went to visit the SSKM hospital, when she was looking to remedy the situation, that's when this happened.
What was the abuse specifically? Can you tell me what the abuse was?
Creating a complete. It was called Randi. Okay, that was the abuse.
Did she file a police complaint?
Said that,
she's fully within the rights. I would have filed a police complaint. Did she file a police complaint? And I apologize to my viewers for the bad language. Did she file a police complaint?
She is Mamata Banerjee. She is not Narendra Modi who arrests police people, who arrests doctors.
I didn't ask her to arrest anyone. If she found offense, she should file a police complaint. She should not threaten to throw people out of the state, to throw them out of their hospital or out of their hostels. She basically went on the offensive on a language war that was completely uncalled for. It made the matter that much worse. I want to go back to Kingshuk Nag right now, senior journalist. Mr. Nag, I know that you've been tracking this story very closely. Again, I apologize to my panel for the bad language that was used. This has been a political potboiler when it should have been handled on the merits of the case, which is that doctors in hospitals deserve security. Mr. Nag.
Yeah, doctors in hospital deserve security, and doctors in hospitals don't have security, at least in Bengal. We know that. And Mamata Banerjee made the situation worse by doing her politics and making it Bengal for Bengalis. What sort of crap is this? I am a Bengali. I never stayed in Bengal. I've stayed in so many parts of the country, including Bangalore. What will be our fate if the states and the places we stay in, the people would say, no, we don't want Bengalis. So he's talking nonsense. Bengal has always been a very open society, and non-Bengalis are very welcome in Calcutta and everywhere. This is the first time I'm seeing somebody saying Bengal for Bengalis. Mamata Banerjee has said that today. I have written a protest letter to her also today. Of course, there's no response, not that I expect any response. But what sort of crap is this? Bengal is an open society, has always been an open society. And here, TMC is saying Bengal for Bengalis, and this gentleman shamelessly is mouthing this line. What sort of crap is this? I protest. This sort of statement should never be made. If you do like that, what will happen to Bengalis outside Bengal? They'll also be made examples of by the state governments. But we are living in peace everywhere. And so how can you say this? I protest this statement, Bengal for Bengalis alone. And just because some non-Bengalis got into medical colleges in Bengal, you are saying that no, they are creating problems. They only abused Mamata Banerjee in Hindi. This is absolutely absurd, to say the least. That's what I can say.
I mean, Kingshuk Nag, it's almost as if Mamata Banerjee is comfortable being abused in Bengali. She's just not comfortable being abused in Hindi. At the end of the day, she should have a problem with the fact that there was abuse to begin with. Go and file a police complaint, the fact that you believe someone abused you. Or solve the problem that caused the abuse. And here's my issue with this entire thing. Dr. Nagaral, I'm going to come back to you. The problem is the healthcare system. The problem is the public healthcare system. But politics always gets in the way. This was a problem of a doctor being beaten up inside a hospital. But every single political party has run hotshot on this, and they have decided to make it an issue that will serve their politics.
Yeah, so, I'm not one of those who believes that that there should be politics in the good sense of the term is welcome. Health is a political issue. But what we saw here is obviously regional politics, petty politics. And I must say that, the perspective that also we need to bring in is that actually, Faye, no political party is really clean on this. In the past, political parties across the board, their representatives have actually indulged or provoked violence. In Mumbai city, many years back, there was a hospital ransacked by a political party of this city.
Yes.
And I think last year we had also a case of a person who became a union health minister later who was slapping a doctor, etc.
Yes.
So I think this is across parties, but I think what has happened here is because of Mamata Banerjee's approach to the situation, this provided the peg. And by the way, Faye, in the past also, when there have been strikes by resident doctors, I have been part of strikes. I've seen strikes in Maharashtra very carefully, closely. The resident doctors have been threatened subtly in a slightly different manner, saying that you will lose your jobs, will be moved out of hospitals. In the last strike here, they got a similar letter from the Chief Minister. But I think the way it was done here publicly, that's what has probably triggered this whole response.
Absolutely. Vivek Reddy is with us as well of the BJP. Mr. Reddy, quick question. According to the IMA, they submitted to a joint ministerial committee recommendations in 2015 that were never actioned. If the recommendations had been actioned in 2015, none of this would have happened today. Why is it that healthcare is such a low priority for this government?
Well, I think, Faye, first of all, healthcare is not a low priority for this government. The government has an objective. It has increased the spending in healthcare by about 15% the last financial, that is 2018-19. Even before that, we spent about 63,000 crores on healthcare. Even before that, we have lifted this budget from about 37,000 crores in 2016-17 to a massive 63,000 crore in the space of 2 years. I think the government also has the objective. The larger objective of the government is to put the facts in perspective, that we want to increase it to 2.5% of the GDP by 2025. So the government is working on this and is expanding the imprint in the GDP of healthcare. This is first. The second thing is, I think the protections that are to be given to each of the professionals, that is doctors or advocates, I think there has been a wide-ranging demand from various professionals, even advocates, even doctors, to give them extra protection by passing special laws. This, of course, is under the scanner of the government. The government is thinking about it because every profession would demand that they need protection, and this has to be viewed from the larger perspective and its consequences. The issue today is that Mamata Banerjee is now trying to politicize.
One second. I just want to correct a couple of things that Mr. Reddy has said. Mr. Reddy, forgive me. India's per capita expenditure on healthcare is among the lowest in the world. The government spends as little as 3 rupees a day on each citizen, and this is lower than several other countries, including countries in the third world. The amount India spends on public healthcare per capita is every year is 1,112 rupees, less than the cost of a single consultation in the top private hospitals in the country. And this is among the lowest in the world. Sri Lanka spends 4 times as much as India on health per capita. The Maldives spends 9.4%, Bhutan spends 2.5%, Thailand spends 2.9%, we spend 1%. So we could keep arguing about this, but to say that India is constantly increasing her spend is in fact very misleading, because what it depends on is a spend as a portion of the GDP. If I gave you 1 rupee today and gave you 2 rupees tomorrow and said that I've increased your allowance by 50, I've doubled your allowance, you should be very happy. The truth is 2 rupees is worth nothing. Let's be honest.
Let me tell you, Faye. Yes. Yes, let me tell you one thing. On the facts, that India is one of the least spenders of GDP is a given. It is a fact. But today we spend 1.15% of the GDP. What the Modi government has done is, in 2017-18, in 2017-18, the spending was 52,800 crore. They lifted it by 15% in 2018-19. So it went up to 63,000 crore. And the point that I'm trying to make out is, true that this is still not up to the world standards, but the populations of the countries you mentioned are very meager. We are dealing with huge populations of such huge numbers that it is very difficult to imagine how we will cater to healthcare. But look at what Modi has done. He has said 5 lakhs is the cover under PMJ scheme. 5 lakhs for any person who has to undergo a serious health crisis. And it covers about 1,400 ailments. This is the great thing. Healthcare is made, Mr.
Reddy, if you offer 5 lakhs of health insurance, but there aren't enough doctors and there aren't enough beds and the doctors are getting beaten up in hospitals and there's not enough security in those hospitals, what is anyone going to do with the 5 lakhs of insurance if we don't have enough doctors? And that's the point at the end of the day. Mr. Kingshuk Nag, and we've tracked this on the channel at least, that spending is low priority, and an insurance policy is not going to solve that problem on primary healthcare, secondary healthcare and the public sector. Mr. Nag, I'm not sure if Mr. Nag can hear me. Dr. Nagaran?
Yeah, I think, Vivek Reddy talks about Ayushman Bharat, and obviously that is a flagship scheme. But if you actually look at Ayushman Bharat, what is it? It's like interim relief. It is not doing anything to infrastructure. It is not actually doing anything to improve the services in the public hospital. So actually, Ayushman Bharat is a tacit acceptance that we are not able to improve infrastructure, so let's give insurance cover. So it's better than nothing, but it's certainly not improving infrastructure. And we must learn to distinguish between these two things. Giving insurance policies, part of it will probably go to the private sector, and building infrastructure. So there's a difference between the two.
So basically, the public healthcare sector, just like public education, has to service a large portion of the population for free and give them quality healthcare. What we are saying is we are not able to do that. So here's an insurance policy, go to the private sector. Is that effectively what it does?
It's effectively that. And as I said, therefore, it's actually a tacit acceptance that we can't do much to improve healthcare from the infrastructural viewpoint. So let's give some temporary
Give me an idea of the numbers of the total healthcare sector in India. What percentage is private and what percentage is public?
So currently, in terms of indoor treatment, 60% is private. In terms of outpatients, it's 80%. So we have actually one of the most privatized healthcare systems in the world. And incidentally, it is also one of the most unregulated of the healthcare systems. So if state money, that is Ayushman Bharat, goes into the private sector, I think simultaneously the government will have to see how that's going to be regulated, how it's going to be used, who's going to use it for whom.
Yes, absolutely. And this actually encourages the private sector to become more and more of a business, and in many cases we've seen more and more of an unethical business.
So there's the example of the old schemes, Arogyasri in Andhra Pradesh, and where they launch schemes, and unfortunately, and I must say here that the medical profession will also take part of the blame. That we saw a huge spurt in surgeries, huge spurt in operations like hysterectomies, and that's giving a very bad name to such
profession.
schemes.
Yes. Mr. Gopal Krishnan on the phone line from Thiruvananthapuram. Mr. Gopal Krishnan, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening to all the panelists and also to Mirror Now on the country. Firstly, I have 2-3 points. The whole country has not appreciated the way the doctors were harassed and threatened by the Chief Minister of West Bengal, Srimati Mamata Banerjee, and also how they were handled. The most important aspect of every doctor is to serve the patients at all crises. And so one day, God forbid, even Mamata Banerjee will require a doctor. So they have to respect the doctors and the professionalism. The panelists always switch into politically, and they talk about what the present government is doing, what the previous government is doing. I don't belong to any political party per se, but this issue has been totally politicized. Somebody says it's the BJP, somebody says it's the West Bengal, and asking Bengal for Bengalis is very absurd.
Yes.
We are all Indians. We are one country. It's a secular country. Every religion and country should not be divided by religious or political basis.
Absolutely. Yes, I completely agree with you. Ravi Mishra on the phone line from Bangalore. Mr. Mishra, go ahead.
Hi, Faye. Thanks for hosting the call. You are really bringing up issues that affect common man.
Thank you.
But
Go ahead.
my point here is this is being shown as a problem between the government and the doctors. But the core of the problem is why are doctors getting beaten up? Because doctors today are hand in glove with hospital management. And when a common man goes to a hospital, he gets to pay overpriced medications and things like that, right? So where is a platform for a common man to come and say, I'm not getting the medical facilities that I deserve from a private hospital or from a public hospital?
No, that's a very good question, and I want to be able to answer that before we end the conversation. Dr. Nagaral, there are several cases in which patients feel that either they're being overcharged or they're not being given the right treatment, or there's negligence, there's medical negligence. Obviously, violence is not the answer, as angry as you might become. What is the answer?
Yeah, so I think let me first say that there is some truth in it. There is some truth in it. And I mean, doctors are patients, and when doctors become patients, they face the same problem. So there is some truth in it. What is the answer? Very big question, complex question. But one of the features of Indian healthcare is that we have privatized it to very high limits, but more importantly, it is one of the least regulated of healthcare systems. If you study the rest of the world, you have either a strong public healthcare system, like the NHS in England, and the private sector becomes irrelevant. Or if you have a private sector, it's heavily regulated. And therefore, we've lost a part of the game by creating this humongous private sector
that does whatever it wants,
which is largely unregulated. But I just also want to say, and we have the IMA here, that perhaps one of the jobs of doctors is to have an independent voice.
So tell me something, in the West perhaps, when there is medical negligence of any sort, there are very expensive cases that are filed where doctors will either have to pay or their insurance pays. Is there any sort of, ombudsman or someone that an Indian patient can go to if they feel they have been cheated?
So I don't think there is an ombudsman of any sort currently. And I think there's a desperate need to do that. Even hospitals should be doing that, offering the services of a third party who sit down with patients, talk to patients. The experience, there's a limited experience from Mumbai where a group did this, and it actually showed that almost 70 to 80% of the cases will not go to court if there is a direct discussion between the patient and the doctor.
All right. So I understand also from the questions that we're receiving right now that there needs to be a much larger conversation on the channel about medical malpractice, because this does seem like something that's really bothering people. But while the doctors have called off their strike in Bengal and across the country, there are a couple of things that we must bring into focus. First of all, that doctors must receive security while they're doing their jobs. It's already a difficult job. It's a job that involves stress and decision making and life and death decision making. They shouldn't have to also worry about being beaten up while they're doing it. It's a basic necessity, must be done. It must be done across the country. Secondly, Our spending on healthcare is abysmal as a country. We must, before we do anything else, strengthen our public healthcare system. There's already tons of money flowing into these government hospitals. But it's a really bad job is being done there. The facilities are poor, the equipment is not good enough, the doctors are overworked, and the patients are obviously very frustrated. We have to solve the problem at its absolute root. It's only then, when our public healthcare system becomes stronger, that the private healthcare system will not be able to run riot over what it charges, what it delivers, and what it does. Thanks for watching.